Welcome to Carol Journey TV. Today we are going to show you part 2 of our journey to Chicago 2017 Marathon, sponsored by Bank of America. In case you missed part 1, it can be viewed on YouTube. For you runners out there, contact us, Carol Journey TV, and tell us about your experiences. Share part 1 and part 2 with your friends. Like us and subscribe. Thank you for joining Carol Journey TV.
I'm feeling a little congested this morning, but I did get very good rest. So I'm ready to go, nice and slow. I'm ready to do it. Well, what got me interested in running, actually, I was already pretty physical to begin with. And a couple of years ago, I had started, a friend of mine who grew up in the building, his name is Tracy Knott. He started this program in Van Cortlandt at the time, and quite a few people grew up with him in the building. They told me, what time he meets. So he would meet on Saturdays and Sundays at Van Cortlandt. And part of what he would do is run, and there'd be cardio and aerobic exercise, and I thought that was a great thing to do over the weekend. So I started from there, and this is, of course I had taken breaks along the way, but it was just for me to get started back up again. So I started from there a little bit, and from there, I've always had an interest in yoga, so I incorporated a little bit of yoga into my program as well. And what happened was, a few years later, I went ahead and I volunteered at the Percy Sutton Race Walk program, which happens every summer in August. I volunteered and I had a great time, but the thing that stood out the most was how gracious all the runners were. And I also noticed a large pool of African Americans. Specifically, there was a group called Black Girls Run. They stood out. So I said to myself, I've always wanted to run. Let me see if I can join this group. And actually, it just really started from there. I went ahead, I think it was the end of last year or the year before, I signed up for Black Girls Run. I found a group near me to run with, and the rest is history. From there, the group meets up on Tuesday. I started running with them. Just about everybody in the group already did marathons and so forth. And I said, you know what? I don't know if I'll ever do a marathon, but, maybe over time I can, sign up for a race. I was encouraged to sign up for a race. So at some point, after joining them and running with them for a little while, I did my first 5K. Not sure where that was. It was a while ago. And then from there, I increased it to 7. Then it increased to 10. Next thing I know, I was doing a half marathon. Next thing I know, I signed up for a full marathon. And how that happened was my trainer, Gisela Perez, she is the ambassador of 161st Street Group. She said to me, you're ready for a marathon. She said, she encouraged me to do the 9+1 program for New York City. And then she also said, you should sign up for Chicago. Chicago's a beautiful, nice city. You'll have a great time. And she said, it's nice and flat. So I said, okay, let me just, and she says, it's a lottery, but you have a good chance of getting in because they do accept a lot of people. So I said, okay. I went ahead, I signed up. Next thing I know, I got an email that said I was selected. And I was like, So I called her right away, let her know. There's quite a few of us that got in. I gotta go this way, I think. I gotta cross it. Oh, I see everybody going this way. Okay. I signed up, and she told me there after that, she said, make sure you get your hotel immediately because that fills up very fast. So I went ahead, I got my hotel. I completed what's called a 9+1 program. That's the program you do in order to qualify for the New York City Marathon. So that's at least 9 right there. It's called 9+1, so I did 9. So you got 9 races I signed up for. Actually, I would say 9 races, and then there's a couple of races I did in between just to do it. So I would say my guess would be about 12 this year. And then when you throw in the training, I trained the whole entire summer. So I can't do the math, it's early in the morning, but you figure this way. My training started in June. I had to run 4 times during the week. I had to run 3 short runs and 1 long run every week from June 1st all the way to the first week of September. So we're talking about July, August, September. We're talking about 3 months of training and running every week. So that's a lot of running there. Well, my plans for the future are this. Next year will be New York City. I'm qualified for that, so New York City will be November of 2018. And then after that, 2019, I'm looking to do an international race. There are 7 top races in the world, one being Boston, Chicago, New York City, Tokyo, Japan, Paris, and I'm pretty sure Berlin. Those are the 7. So my goal is to do those 7 over, a 7-8 year time span, I would say. So that what that says is you're doing a marathon every year or maybe every other year. But it's going to be a great day because normally I'd be out here and I'd be freezing, and I'm actually feeling pretty good this morning. The other thing I did was I packed the night before, so it just made it that much easier for me.
And are encouraged to meet runners at Runner Reunite on Columbus Drive, adjacent to the 27th mile post-race party. All bags will be screened by security personnel. Please note that personal bags, backpacks, luggage, etc. will not be permitted. All participants must use the bags.
So I'll kind of walk to the back where you train. There's no line. And all the huge spots. All right.
This is as far as I can go, I think.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, okay.
Good luck.
Thank you, baby.
just like that. Well, we're going to talk, and let me get back in town. Good.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey yo, let's crawl. Hey yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey yo, let's crawl.
So there's 40,000 steps in the marathon, and every time you make a step you take the full force of your body weight plus all of the acceleration that's put into that. So it's a really highly impactful event, i.e. the impact on your joints is quite significant and on your muscles. That much impact through joints like the hips, the knees, the ankles and even the feet can cause those joints to be painful. In long distance running, you need to produce force, but you don't need to produce maximal force. So you need to produce force to propel yourself forward for long periods of time. So your muscles don't need to be as strong, but they need to be fatigue resistant. And those muscles are smaller in size than in a sprinter. And actually having a lighter body mass is helpful in running, because with every step you have to propel your body weight, and therefore being a lean, light specimen makes you more adapted to endurance running than being a very strong, powerful sprinter. We know there are certain physiological characteristics that a marathon runner has to possess to be elite at that event. They have to have a really big aerobic engine, and we measure that by measuring their VO2 max. That's the maximum amount of oxygen they can take in, transport to the muscles and utilise. But the second and almost equally important component is being a really economical runner. So it doesn't matter if you have a really big engine or a really big VO2 max. If you're actually very inefficient at running, that's not going to help you run for 26 miles. So running economy, i.e. how much energy it takes you to take each step per kilometre, is very important. During the race, fueling's really important. What will happen is the preferred fuel for the body when you're running a marathon is carbohydrates, but we don't have many great stores of carbohydrates, so we will run out. And when you hit the wall in a marathon, it's because you've run out of carbohydrate to use as a fuel for running. So what you want to try and do is keep your carbohydrate stores topped up along the marathon race, to prevent us having to use predominantly fat as a fuel, because when we use fat as a fuel we have to go slower, because as a process of burning energy it's a more complex and slower system, so we can only support slower exercise when we use fat as a fuel. So dehydration causes a decrease in blood volume. It makes the heart work harder because the heart has to pump harder to get the less blood volume around the body, and therefore it increases the physiological strain of that particular exercise. So keeping hydrated will actually reduce the physiological strain and reduce the level of fatigue that you experience. Thermoregulation, or your ability to dissipate heat from your body when you're doing a marathon, is really important. When your muscles contract to allow you to run, they produce about 10 times more heat than they do to allow you to walk. And therefore, even on a cool day, your body will be producing lots and lots of heat. And if the environment is very hot around you, like in a spring or a summer marathon, then you've got an extra environmental challenge as well. The body's working really hard to keep you cool. Unfortunately, that has a negative effect on the resources you can send to the working muscles. So as soon as you divert blood flow away from working muscles to your skin to cool you, you're taking away resource, energy, oxygen from the muscles that are working. You can help keep your body cool through strategies such as drinking cold drinks, and also running through cold showers during the race will help. Every athlete is individual in the way they sweat during exercise. On average, athletes will tend to lose around a litre an hour. It's fairly hard to replenish that adequately in the race, and it's okay to finish slightly dehydrated. We know that athletes can finish up to 3 or 4% dehydrated when they complete a marathon. The recovery from a marathon takes quite a while. It's a long race and it has a really significant effect on the body. Muscles become damaged, so muscle fibres become frayed and torn, and that takes a long time to recover. Your body has an inflammatory response after that type of long bout of exercise, and you'll find that elite runners will have probably up to 2 weeks off after a marathon race, and then about 2 weeks of fairly easy training before they ease themselves back into their normal training load. So it's important to take time to recover, and it's important to have absolute rest in the days immediately after the marathon race, and then ease yourself fairly gently back into full training load.
Hey, for you fans hanging out with us, spectators, family and friends, little Neil Diamond to get you going. Everybody put your hands together, make some noise, sing along, I don't care.
I am beat. I had to sit down. I am, my feet, my body, I am like, I'm done.
You made it. I see a lot of people didn't make it. You did good.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoy our journey to Chicago for the Chicago Marathon. We will post the Chicago Marathon on YouTube, so we want you to make sure you tune into YouTube, to Facebook, to Twitter. It will be on all the social medias, along with some of the other shows we have had in the past. I want to thank you for joining us.
I experienced chafing, not so much in the beginning because I wasn't running as much, but I noticed that the longer I ran, that's when I started to experience chafing issues. And I had to, in terms of me packing for my races, I always had to make sure that the importance of greasing down, having Vaseline and so forth. So that was one of the things I had to be mindful of, was that. The other thing, other challenges was to the importance of cross training and not just running. You know, basically cross training, working more on the upper body is just as important as the lower body. So definitely incorporating some personal training there. The other obstacle or challenge, or just being mindful, I guess, would be food prepping. It's important because number one, it saves you time, it saves you effort, and it kind of keeps you in the balance of what you have to do as a runner. Yes, you know, you are running, but you can't eat whatever you want to eat. So the meal prepping actually helps you to stay on course. Also learning how to breathe properly. And the other thing for me, the biggest challenge for me was when I would start running, I would shoot out too fast and that I wouldn't pace myself. So learning how to better pace myself was a thing that I had to learn. Well, truth be told, I've always wanted to go to Chicago. I've known people that have gone to the city. I've seen pictures of Chicago. And so that was withstanding the marathon. I wanted to visit Chicago anyway. That's number one. I like the idea that, and again, I was told this many times, that the marathon would be very flat. I found that appealing because as I discovered as a runner, New York City is very hilly. So it was a relief to know that my first marathon would be challenging, but I wouldn't have to worry about so many hills. So that was an attraction. The city was definitely a big attraction. The architecture of the city, the vibe, the energy. I was also told, you know, when I would go there, there's plenty of restaurants to visit. And I was, you know, so that was part of it. So it's just, you know, actually going to visit Chicago, the architecture, the camaraderie, the socialism there, the weather. I noticed I started slowing down after 13, 14, it was between 13 and 18 miles. I just felt like I just had no fuel left over. And that's not because I wasn't supplied with an adequate amount of fuel. Because when you're doing a marathon, there are plenty of fluid stations. So that really wasn't the case. I think, you know, we're human. Our bodies get tired. We get tired. So I had to kind of started slowing down. I knew I needed to finish. I knew I was going to finish. So I just said, you know what? If I just keep moving, I'll eventually get to the finish line. But I believe it was between the 13th and the 18th mile. And then what happens from there is you start to rely on the energy and the spirit of the runners around you, because you notice they're going through the exact same thing. You're not out there running by yourself. You're running with thousands of other people that are experiencing the same thing you are. So what happens is you start a conversation, and usually the conversation is you keep each other lighthearted, it's funny, and often it's comical, you know. But again, the bottom line is, as far as the marathon is concerned, and they'll say it over and over again, whatever you have to do, just make sure you don't quit and get to the finish line. And that I did. I'm going to continue running, I'm excited about training again. I'm qualified for the New York City Marathon for 2018, so I'm excited about that. I'm also looking at the possibility of doing an international race, and as you know, that's through a lottery. So that's a chance you take. It doesn't mean they're going to select you, but again, what I've learned with running is you just take a chance. You just have to put yourself out there and see what happens. The other thing I'm really excited about is, because like I said, as you start speaking to other runners, I know quite a few runners that go to different cities. They love to do half marathons, and they enjoy going to smaller cities you don't really hear about running. It's not always running in popular cities per se. So I'm looking at the prospect of going to another city and running there. It doesn't have to be a full marathon. It can just be a half marathon. And it's also a way to go out and visit and learn a little about the city and the culture and get some running in. So those are my plans. And yes, I will continue to run.